The trajectory of global leadership is often marked by privilege, intense education, or military distinction. But sometimes, the path to power begins not in the halls of academe or the ministries of government, but in the mundane, hard-working anonymity of the common street. For Nicolás Maduro Moros, the current president of Venezuela, the journey began with the hiss of hydraulic brakes and the rhythmic grind of a bus engine. Before the national addresses, before the sprawling security details, and long before his name dominated global headlines, Nicolás Maduro was, for all intents and purposes, invisible. His early life offers a stark contrast to the revolutionary figures who dominated Latin American history. He was not born into wealth. There were no family connections to the elite political class. He was not afforded the luxury of an education in exclusive private schools. Nor was he formally trained for any role in government or administration. His professional life began, simply and necessarily, behind the wheel. He was a bus driver in Caracas. Every morning presented the same routine, the familiar routes winding through the congested capital, the same faces merging into the daily stream of passengers, the constant, oppressive noise of a rapidly expanding metropolitan area struggling under economic strain. To the hundreds of commuters he served daily on the metro bus lines, he was just another working man, perhaps notable only for his quiet intensity or his distinctive mustache. No one climbing aboard the crowded bus, maneuvering past the turnstile, could possibly have imagined that this unassuming driver would one day hold the keys to the presidential palace, Miraflores. Maduro's formative years were steeped in the chronic instability that has long defined Venezuelan society. He came of age amidst raging inflation, the constant friction of political protests, and a pervasive cynicism born from decades of broken promises by successive administrations. He learned early, like countless other Venezuelans facing economic hardship, that simple day-to-day survival often superseded grand political ambition. The goal was not necessarily to change the world, but to secure the next paycheck. Yet, this life of grueling work and economic precariousness was precisely the environment that initiated his engagement with politics. Though not through traditional routes, it wasn't abstract political ideology that first pulled him in, but the pragmatic necessity of organization. His entry point into the wider world of public action was the burgeoning labor movement, specifically the Transport Workers Union. He began by listening intently to the grievances of his colleagues, participating in small meetings, and slowly taking on the painstaking work of organization. It was here, watching the intricate dynamics of power from the outside, the negotiations, the strikes, the small victories won through collective action, that Maduro began to cultivate a sense of political identity. In 1977, at the age of 14, Maduro joined the League of Socialist Militants. It was a marginal group, politically speaking, yet it offered him a structured framework for understanding the systemic issues plaguing Venezuela. These early political activities, however, remained secondary to his main occupation. He had to earn a living. Throughout the 1980s, while navigating the volatile economic landscape, he continued his work as a bus driver, becoming an active and vocal leader within the Caracas Metro Union. This platform provided him with a voice, albeit a localized one, and the skills needed to negotiate and motivate large groups of workers. Maduro's commitment to the labor cause was more than simple careerism. It became a defining feature of his identity. He successfully rallied workers, securing better conditions and wages, and cementing his reputation as a man who understood and defended the common worker. This visibility soon brought him into contact with more radical anti-establishment figures who were beginning to gather in the shadows of the crumbling political order. One of the most significant figures to emerge during this era of deep political dissatisfaction was Lieutenant Colonel Hugo Chavez Freyes. Chavez, a charismatic paratrooper, was quietly organizing within the armed forces, deeply critical of what he saw as Venezuela's corrupt and failing democracy. Maduro, rooted firmly in the civilian labor movement, found common ground with Chavez's anti-elitist revolutionary message. Though their backgrounds were vastly different, Chavez, the military officer, Maduro, the unionist, they shared a profound commitment to overthrowing the established social and economic structure. The year 1992 proved to be a watershed moment for Venezuela and the emerging revolutionary movement. On February 4th, Chavez led a failed military coup attempt against President Carlos Andrés Pérez. The coup collapsed quickly, and Chavez was imprisoned. Yet, the televised moment where Chavez, defeated but defiant, addressed the nation, resonated deeply with a population tired of the status quo. For Nicolás Maduro, this moment was not one of despair, but of opportunity. Chavez's imprisonment activated his civilian network, transforming it from a mere labor organization into a crucial lifeline for the jailed leader. Maduro became instrumental in mobilizing public support for Chavez and advocating tirelessly for his release. He coordinated meetings, distributed messages, and effectively operated as an essential civilian link for the incarcerated revolutionary. His tireless loyalty during this period would prove invaluable, establishing a bond with Chavez that transcended mere political alliance. For Maduro, the stakes had been raised. The fight was no longer just about the bus routes or the union contract. It was about the fundamental transformation of his entire nation. This dedication, this fierce loyalty in the face of immense risk, set him firmly on a path from the driver's seat to the inner circle of the coming revolution. Not reshape it. Everything changed when Hugo Chavez arrived. Chavez didn't just lead Venezuela, he dominated it. Maduro wasn't the loudest voice, he wasn't the smartest strategist, but he was loyal. And loyalty in revolutionary politics is currency. Maduro became a familiar presence, then a trusted one. Foreign minister, vice president, always close, never threatening. When Chavez fell ill, no one expected Maduro to inherit the revolution. But Chavez understood something others missed. Maduro would protect the legacy, not reshape it. It was December 2012. Chavez had just returned from Cuba, following another round of cancer treatment. He knew the end was approaching, and the time for speculation was over. In a nationally televised address, looking weary but resolute, he designated Nicolás Maduro as his successor. It was a stunning announcement for many inside and outside the movement. While other powerful figures, like Diosdado Cabello, seemed to possess the necessary strength and charisma, Chavez chose the man who had always stood patiently in his shadow. This choice reveals the core tension of the Bolivarian Revolution. Was it a movement, or was it the cult of a personality? By selecting Maduro, Chavez essentially ensured the continuation of his own style of rule. Maduro had spent years mastering the theatrical cadence, the populist rhetoric, and the deep emotional connection to the Chavista base. He was the perfect ideological custodian. The transition, however, was not immediate or clean. For months, Venezuela existed in a state of limbo. Chavez was in Cuba, increasingly frail, while Maduro managed the government back home. This period tested Maduro's ability to project authority without the man who granted it. He was navigating a political landscape rife with ambitious rivals and a nervous military establishment. He had to prove, daily, that he wasn't just a placeholder, but the designated heir. Then, on March 5, 2013, the inevitable happened. Hugo Chavez died. The outpouring of grief was immense, but the constitutional clock was ticking. According to the Venezuelan constitution, if the president dies or is permanently incapacitated, the vice president assumes power and calls an election within 30 days. Maduro was sworn in immediately. What followed was perhaps the most emotionally charged and politically significant election in modern Venezuelan history. Maduro was running as the chosen one, the son of Chavez. His main opponent, Enrique Capriles, was charismatic and had strong popular backing, but he had to contend with the power of the myth. The state apparatus, the extensive social programs, and the deeply ingrained emotional connection of the Chavista base were all mobilized in Maduro's favor. The campaign was intense, aggressive, and ultimately razor-thin. When the votes were counted, Maduro won with just 50.62% of the vote, a margin so narrow that the opposition immediately challenged the results, alleging widespread fraud and demanding a full recount. This contested victory set the stage for everything that would follow. Maduro inherited not a mandate, but a deeply divided and polarized country. He inherited an economy already showing dangerous cracks beneath the surface of high oil prices. And most crucially, he inherited the immense, impossible shadow of Hugo Chavez. He was president, yes, but he had yet to become the undisputed leader, and the world was watching to see if the loyal follower could actually command the revolution, or if it would simply consume him. When Maduro took office, the applause was weaker. The economy was already fragile, but now it was teetering on the edge of a cliff. Then, oil prices, the very lifeblood of the Venezuelan state, began to plummet. To make matters worse, international sanctions started to tighten, constricting the flow of resources and capital. It was a perfect storm, and Maduro was at the helm, navigating a ship that was taking on water faster than anyone could bail. Unlike his predecessor, Maduro did not inspire grand visions or command a magnetic presence. He endured. And in a political landscape defined by crisis, endurance itself became his core strategy. As the economy worsened, the streets filled with protesters. The demonstrations grew larger, more frequent, and more desperate. The international community, watching the unfolding humanitarian crisis, increased its pressure, demanding political change and condemning his government. But Maduro stayed. His survival wasn't a product of popularity or popular mandate. It was a masterclass in control. He methodically consolidated his power over key institutions, the military, the judiciary, the electoral council. He cultivated a network of loyal allies, both at home and abroad, who had a vested interest in his government's survival. He demonstrated a keen sense of political timing, knowing when to concede, when to negotiate, and when to clamp down with force. He didn't win hearts and minds in the way Chavez had. Instead, he managed systems. He understood the levers of power, not as tools for inspiration, but as mechanisms for control. While the opposition rallied under the banner of democracy and freedom, Maduro focused on the far more practical and brutal calculus of political survival. he turned the state apparatus into a fortress designed not to serve the people, but to protect the ruler within. This created a stark dichotomy. On one side, a population grappling with hyperinflation, shortages, and a collapsing infrastructure. On the other, a government that seemed impervious to both internal dissent and external condemnation. The opposition, though passionate and at times holding massive popular support, was fragmented. They struggled to present a united front against a leader who had successfully centralized power. Maduro exploited these divisions, playing different factions against each other, ensuring that no single challenger could ever gather enough momentum to truly threaten his grip. The years that followed were a grueling war of attrition. For the Venezuelan people, it was a daily struggle for existence. For the opposition, it was a frustrating and often dangerous fight against a system that seemed unbreakable. And for Maduro, it was a constant, high-stakes balancing act, maintaining loyalty within his inner circle while suppressing the growing discontent outside. His power was not built on a foundation of charisma, but on the cold, hard mechanics of authoritarian rule. Most leaders throughout history have strived to be loved, to be admired, to be seen as the saviors of their people. They build monuments, they give grand speeches, they promise a brighter future. But Nicolás Maduro's path to leadership, and more importantly, his method of maintaining it, was carved from a different stone. His focus was singular, relentless, survival. He seemed to understand a fundamental, often overlooked aspect of power politics. It's not always about the grand charge or the decisive victory. Sometimes it's about endurance. It's a war of attrition, not against armies, but against attention spans, against international will, against the very hope of your opponents. He mastered the art of the strategic pause, learning precisely when to wait, when to let the storm of international condemnation rage, knowing that storms eventually pass. He knew when to concede nothing, turning stubbornness into a shield. He watched as the world, which once furiously focused its gaze on Venezuela, grew tired. Attention, like a spotlight, simply moved elsewhere. And in that space, in that quiet, things began to shift. The once unified opposition, a vibrant coalition of different ideologies and leaders, began to show cracks. Without a clear and immediate path to victory, internal squabbles and strategic disagreements festered, and the movement fractured. What was once a mighty river of protest became a delta of smaller, less effective streams. The crippling sanctions, once seen as a powerful tool to force change, became a grim feature of daily life. People adapted. The economy, in its own broken way, normalized around them. The shock wore off, replaced by a weary resignation. And through it all, as the world looked away and his opposition splintered, Maduro remained. He was still there, a constant presence in a landscape of constant change and turmoil. It's a stark lesson in the nature of power. Nicolás Maduro was, by many accounts, never meant to be president. He wasn't the charismatic heir apparent, the revolutionary firebrand that history seems to favor. He was the successor, the one chosen to carry a torch. But history, as we've seen time and again, doesn't always follow the script we write for it. It doesn't always choose the loudest voice, the most popular candidate, or the most qualified leader. Sometimes, history simply chooses the one who refuses to leave. We often imagine power as a dramatic ascent, a climb to the top of a mountain. But perhaps we've been looking at it the wrong way. Power does not always rise. Sometimes it just stays. If you wish to explore more stories of power, politics, and the figures who shape our world, consider subscribing. We delve into these complex narratives every week. Thank you for watching.